Do you believe in the power of destiny? Imagine being on a luxury train, trying to overcome the past, when a person appears and turns your life upside down. Henrique, a widowed millionaire, is about to discover the impossible. The train's chambermaid, Lorena, is identical to his wife, who died 7 years ago. But who is she really? A look-alike, a coincidence, or is there something much bigger hidden in this story? Get ready for a journey full of secrets, revelations, and exciting twists that will change everything you think about the destination. Don't blink, because every second counts in this breathtaking story. Henrique entered the luxurious Espresso Aurora, carrying a mixture of discouragement and boredom. It was a business trip, nothing he really wanted to do, but necessary to maintain his position in an important negotiation. The dining car was almost empty when he decided to sit down for a coffee. He adjusted his shirt cuffs and looked at the menu without paying attention. "Coffee, sir?" asked a female voice. Henrique looked up and was completely paralyzed. In front of him was Lorena, a train attendant, smiling politely. But what left him unresponsive was her face. It was identical to that of Clara, his wife, who had died 7 years ago. The eyes, the shape of the face, even the smile had an eerie similarity. Henrique felt as if the air had been knocked out of his lungs. "Sir?" Lorena repeated, tilting her head, confused by his silence. Sorry, yes, coffee, please," replied Henrique, trying to regain his composure. He held the cup as she placed the coffee in front of him, but his hands were shaking slightly. Lorena continued to smile, but there was an expression of curiosity in her eyes. Henrique knew he needed to say something before she left. "You... Excuse the question, but have we met before?" She laughed softly, straightening her apron. "Not that I remember, sir. Unless you have traveled on this train before." "No, I didn't travel." He paused, choosing his words. "It's just that you remind me of someone." Lorena shrugged with a light smile. "Well, I hope it's someone you like." She paused and pointed to the table. "Anything else? Sugar, perhaps?" "No, thank you," he replied, but his mind was racing. Henrique watched as she walked away to serve another table, unable to take his eyes off her. As the trip continued, Henrique tried to understand what he was feeling. Could it be possible that Lorena was related to Clara? Or maybe her mind was just playing tricks, projecting memories onto the first person who even vaguely resembled her. He shook his head, as if to dismiss those questions. The next time Lorena stopped by his table, Henrique decided to try another approach. "Have you been working here long?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "No, I started a few weeks ago," she replied, with a smile as she adjusted the tray. "I'm still learning the rhythm of the train, a little different work." "And before that? What were you doing?" He expected the conversation to flow, but noticed she hesitated before responding. Nothing very interesting. I worked in several places, simple jobs. You know how it is. We do what we need to move forward." Henrique noticed something different in her tone, as if she were avoiding something, but he didn't press. He thanked her and let her walk away. What seemed like a trivial conversation to her was, to him, a growing enigma. Sitting in the carriage, Henrique was swallowed by memories of Clara. He remembered her smile on a sunny day in the garden, the way she laughed at his bad jokes, and the moment his life changed forever 7 years ago. He thought about how he had closed his heart since then, avoiding connections so as not to relive the pain. But now, looking at Lorena, it was as if all of that was back. Not just the memories, but the hope of understanding what was happening. Who was she, anyway? Why did she look so much like Clara? Henrique didn't know if he wanted answers, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. As the train moved through a mountainous landscape, he decided he needed to talk to Lorena again. He didn't believe in coincidences, and something about this woman made him feel like he was about to discover something that would change his life. After a bad night's sleep on the train, Enrique sat down again in the dining car. He observed the movement around him, but his thoughts were stuck on the image of Lorena. Her every gesture seemed to echo memories he couldn't erase. When she walked past his table carrying a tray, he called out to her, "Lorena, can I ask something more personal?" She stopped, tilting her head slightly. "Of course, as long as it doesn't involve my salary or the coffee recipe. These are very well-kept secrets." Enrique let out a short laugh. "Nothing like that. I can't get over how similar you are to someone I knew, someone very important to me." Lorena looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, people say we all have a double out there. Maybe that's it. Could it be?" Enrique decided to change the subject, but not before asking one more question. "Where are you from? Does your family live around here?" "I'm from a small town, in the countryside. Nothing special." She responded quickly, as if wanting to close the topic. "My family? Well, it's just me now." Enrique noticed the change in her tone and decided not to insist. But something about her evasive answers made him even more curious. Why did she seem so reluctant to talk about herself? Later, he walked around the viewing car, trying to clear his mind. The mountainous landscape passed by the window, but he barely paid attention. Clara's memories continued to invade her thoughts. He remembered the day they met in a bookstore, and her smile when they said yes at the altar. But he also remembered the moment she left, leaving a void he could never fill. Enrique returned to the dining car before dinner, hoping to have another chance to talk to Lorena. As she approached, he tried to adopt a more casual tone. "You seem to like working here." "Ah, that's interesting," she said, adjusting her apron. "The people are varied, and the landscapes are beautiful. I can't complain." "And do you plan on staying for a long time?" He watched her reaction closely. Lorena shrugged, smiling. "For now, yes. Who knows where the train takes me?" Enrique was silent for a moment before asking, "Do you think coincidences exist?" She laughed softly. "Sometimes, but I think things happen for a reason. Why the question?" "Because I feel like you're here for a reason." He hesitated before continuing, "And I don't know if I believe it's just a coincidence." Lorena stared at him for a moment, as if she was thinking about something she didn't want to say. Before she could respond, another table caught her eye, and she walked away. Enrique watched as she left, increasingly certain that there was more to this woman than she was willing to share. Enrique decided it was time to find out more about Lorena. He spent part of the morning talking to train employees, disguising his curiosity as simple interest in the operation of the service. When approaching the waiter who had served his dinner the night before, he asked seemingly casual questions. "Lorraine?" "Ah, it started recently," replied the waiter while rearranging glasses on a cart. "She's good at what she does, but she doesn't talk much about her life." "Do you know where she came from, or why did you choose to work here?" Enrique insisted, trying to appear disinterested. The waiter shrugged. "She just said she was looking for something new. But between us, I think there's something in her past that she'd rather forget." These words kept echoing in Enrique's mind as he wandered through the train corridors. He felt like each piece fit together, but there was still something important missing to complete the puzzle. In the early afternoon, he met Lorena again in the restaurant car. She was silently arranging cutlery, and Enrique realized this was his chance to get closer. "Lorena, can I steal a minute of your time?" he asked, approaching slowly. "Of course, Mr. Enrique, but only if you don't have to complain about the coffee," she replied with a smile. He laughed lightly. "No, it's about you. Something about you intrigues me. I can't help but feel like you're here for a reason that maybe even you don't understand." Lorena stopped, her expression changing slightly. "And what does that mean?" he asked, his tone more cautious. "It means you know things. Or is there something in your past that connects you to me in some way? You mentioned something yesterday that caught my attention." Does this train remind you of anything?" She was silent for a moment, as if deciding what to say. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I've been to places I can't remember. It's strange, but also familiar." Henrique frowned, feeling that he was closer to the truth. "Family how? Any specific memories?" "No, it's more like a feeling. As if this train had some kind of meaning, but I can't say which one." Before he could ask any more questions, Lorena was called by another employee. She quickly walked away, leaving Henrique with more questions than answers. Henrique was unable to contain his growing frustration. He knew there was something about Lorena, something she was reluctant to admit, or perhaps didn't even know about herself. Having decided, he waited until night, when the passengers were in their cabins, and found Lorena in the panoramic car, admiring the stars. "Can I sit down?" he asked, pointing to the armchair next to her. She nodded without looking away from the window. "Of course, but I hope you brought your own answers, because I don't have many." Henrique gave a slight smile, but his tone was serious. "I need to be honest. You are identical to my wife, Clara. The similarity is not just physical, but also in your gestures, in the little things you do." Lorena turned to face him, surprised. "Your wife? She died 7 years ago. And ever since I saw you, I can't shake the feeling that there's a connection between us," he said, leaning forward. "Have you never asked yourself why you are here, why you feel these familiar things you mentioned?" Lorena hesitated, her face reflecting a mixture of doubt and discomfort. "I always felt out of place, like I was looking for something I never found, but that doesn't mean it has to do with you or your wife." "Maybe not, but we need to find out," Henrique insisted. "You said you feel this train is significant. Why?" She crossed her arms, as if trying to protect herself. "I found something when I started working here. A letter. It was addressed to a certain Henrique, but I never had the courage to deliver." Henrique felt his heart race. "Do you have this letter?" Lorena hesitated again, but seeing the urgency in his eyes, sighed. "It's with me. I waited for a moment like this, but I was afraid of what it might mean." She took a carefully folded envelope from her jacket pocket and handed it to Henry. His hands shook as he opened the letter and began to read. The words written there were unmistakably Clara's, revealing secrets he never imagined. In the letter, Clara mentioned a younger sister lost during her childhood, someone she always wanted to find, but never did. Henrique felt a shiver run down his spine. Everything made sense now. "Lorena," he said, looking into her eyes, "you are Clara's sister." She shook her head in disbelief. "No, that cannot be. I never knew any of this. But it's true. Clara always wanted to find her. And now, it's like she's brought us together somehow." Lorena was silent, tears streaming down her face. "If that's true, what do I do now?" "We discovered it together," replied Henrique. "She left us that clue for a reason, and I think we have a long way to go." Henrique and Lorena remained seated in the panoramic car, surrounded by the silence of the night and the words that Clara had left in that letter. The revelation that Lorena was Clara's lost younger sister brought conflicting feelings to both of them: relief, surprise, and the inevitable feeling that their lives had changed forever. "I never knew I had a sister. My adoptive family never mentioned anything like that," said Lorena, looking at the reflection of her own face in the window. She seemed distant, as if she were trying to reorganize her thoughts. Henrique held the letter as if it were a map to something bigger. Clara always talked about it. She felt like something was missing, but she could never figure out what. It's as if she knew that one day you would meet somehow. Lorena looked at him with a half-smile. "It even seems like a story taken from a book, a letter, a train, and two complete strangers who end up connected by something that happened years ago." Henrique smiled back, but his look was serious. We're not that weird now, are we? I mean, all of it. The letter, the similarity between you and Clara, none of this can be just a coincidence. She sighed, crossing her arms as if protecting herself. But what do I do with it now? Knowing that Clara was my sister changes everything, and at the same time, nothing. I didn't know her, and now it's too late. Maybe it's not too late to understand more about her, replied Henrique, leaning slightly forward. You and I are the only people who can continue her story. Don't you think it's worth finding out everything? Lorena shook her head slowly, still processing. And how are we going to do that? I no longer have a family, nor documents that explain what happened to me before the adoption. I know people who can help, said Enrique, his tone confident. I have resources and contacts that can lead us to answers. We will look for documents, records, anything that can give us more clarity. She laughed, a little embarrassed. You talk like this is one of your big business mergers. He laughed too. It's more important than any business. It's about Clara, and if it brought us together, I don't want to waste this chance. The train slowed down as it approached the final station. Lorena looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. You know, Henrique, I always felt like I was looking for something, even without knowing what it was. Maybe that was it. Henry smiled. Perhaps. And now that we've found it, the next step is to figure out together what to do with it. When the train finally stopped, Henrique stood up, extending his hand to Lorena. You don't have to do this alone. If Clara were here, she would say the same. Lorena hesitated for a moment, but then took his hand. Thank you, Henrique. I think for the first time I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The two got off the train, ready to face whatever came. For Enrique, that moment was not only the beginning of a search for answers, but also a new beginning. After years of being trapped in grief, he finally felt that Clara wasn't just in the past. His memory was alive, present in the unexpected connection with Lorena. As they walked through the station, he couldn't help but think that, somehow, Clara had planned everything, as if he knew they would need each other to move forward. Henrique, do you think I will ever understand why all this happened? Asked Lorena as they walked together. I don't know, he replied. But the important thing is that now we have the chance to try, and I think Clara gave us that. Lorena smiled, and for the first time, Enrique felt that the weight he carried in his chest was decreasing. They didn't know what the future held, but they were ready to face it, together.